So for the panel discussion, we're going to have some exceptional women who have been working in the tech industry for quite a not long time. I won't say too much about them. I'd like them to come on stage and introduce themselves. So we will start with Laurence. Then we have Susanne. And finally, Zulaika. All right. Right, so we're going to get to know more about these women, how they have, grown their passion in the tech industry over the past years that they've been working there, and what exactly led them to develop such a passion for it. So I'll just start with the first question. I guess I can start with you, Laurence. So can you tell us a bit more about yourself and what, led you to get into the tech industry?
Sure. So actually, I wasn't born a techie. I started my professional career in strategic consultancy. Mm-hmm. I guess what kind of would be a red line through my career is I was always very passionate about learning and having impact. And I think what led me to tech this last year was basically, the fact that this is probably the industry at the moment where you can have the most impact on society. Yeah. Our mission as Microsoft is to say that we will empower every organization and every people on the planet to achieve more. It might sound, a bit fluffy, but literally that's what I feel we're doing every day. Mm-hmm. And, that's really exciting.
Okay, cool. Susanne.
Good morning, everyone.
Oh, yes.
Same question?
Same question. Just tell us a bit more about yourself and which area of tech you're in.
I actually refuse to be a techie. My passion actually originates in a love for change, and I like people to enjoy change. And usually, and especially in the last 20 years, change comes with technology. So if you don't embrace technology, you won't see most of the change that's happening. So, and I have a passion for making this an enjoyable journey for everyone. Mm-hmm. And I think this comes with a love for technology at the same time, because if you don't like what is going to have a major impact on your life and the life of your family and everyone around you, you can't happily kind of go on in this world where change is actually going to accelerate.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. And Zulaika.
Okay. Hello, everybody. In fact, I think it was not my first choice, because I was dreaming to be a lawyer. Mm-hmm. And then recommendation of my dad, like computer science, so I did my studies. So I born here in Mauritius, then I flew away to do my studies in Europe, in France. I stayed there, and today I'm not really, I've been a techie because I began my career like an analyst programmer, but today I'm not really techie, but what I do is I accompany my team. My team are really techies, so just to accompany them and make them feel like they are valorized and make them work, make them climb the ladder. So that's, really empowering them in the technology world.
Okay. And Susanne, you talk about change, and something that we've seen of recent is that there's been a big change, in the world. The world is slowly moving into the digital world. And so just, before we move away from how you got into tech, are there any motivating factors, beyond the changing world that probably got both of you interested in joining the tech space?
Following my observations and looking into different continents and countries, I think technology is changing the world for better. Mm-hmm. So I want a better world. So I think using technology in the right way gives us a better world, and I'm happy to be part of that journey.
Okay. And for you, I guess, Laurence?
I think what's very interesting at the moment, as a country manager, actually, most of my conversations with executive is to the point that Susanne was making. It's around how you cope with the change in your organization, how you cope with the opportunities, but also the challenge that technology today is posing. So today technology is leading to a lot of conversation on governance, on how to manage risk. So it's a very interesting place because the conversation got really very broad. So I think intellectually speaking, you might think as it's just tech, right? But it's today it's much more than that, right? When you think about AI and one of the topics we talk a lot about is the ethics of AI. How do you make it more inclusive? How do you make sure that society biases are not reflected in AI? Those are very, very interesting conversations to have.
Okay. And Zulaika, for you?
Okay, for me, I would take an example of, because in my company, we are like leading our clients to the digital transformation. So I think that's something really interesting. Like, for example, we helped a bank with which the slogan was "Bank Differently," and we really helped them to make this slogan become a reality because they implemented like human capital management. And I think today that's something, okay, that's what I think we say that technology maybe will replace or whatever humans, but I think that we cannot, behind a machine there will always be a human being and an intelligent one. So I really think that today almost all companies are becoming aware of this, that they should really manage their resources. And so that's something very like using intelligently technology.
Okay. And I think later on I will get into, understanding more about your space and what exactly you do. But I just realized something. You didn't exactly introduce where exactly you work. And I'm pretty sure some of the audience might be wondering, what have you been doing for the past, few years or many years you've been in tech. So whoever wants to go first can tell us what they're currently doing right now.
Okay. Yeah. So I said I began my career as an analyst programmer, and I was in Europe and always wanting to come back to my roots, and I came back in 2005 to found with two partners an IT company. And at the beginning, like maybe 5 or 6 years in the beginning, I was really in the delivery. So delivery around technologies like ERP, CRM, and so that was the beginning, okay? And now I'm no longer really very close to the technology, but I have an overview of what's happening. And I'm mainly, more like, as I said, empowering my people. So it's more like this, and also like networking, being with my clients. So really like opening on both, on two different space, like my team and my clients. And so that's, around technologies, as I said, so lots of different technologies. That's, I think, the strength of my company, and even that's what motivates me every day, is that we've got a diverse technologies, so several of them, but the most innovative ones, and almost all of them in the cloud. So that's really nice.
Okay, and you, Susanne?
I started my career in finance, in banking, and today I serve on the board of Sunthbocu as a non-executive director. So this is just taking a bit of my time. And the majority of my time is taken up by consulting business, and I advise my clients on how to make better use of technology through especially achieving better communication between business and technology. And I think in many cases, digital transformations don't work as efficient or as fast as they could, because there is a lack of understanding of what the client wants, or the client of the company wants, what the business side wants, and what the technology team can actually deliver. And I do this from the boardroom through the entire organization.
So I'm the country manager for Microsoft for the Southern Africa region. So I would say I came to Microsoft probably now about 5 years ago, coming from the telco industry. And basically what I do day to day, I oversee basically our activities in the countries. And I make sure that, you know, the paradigm shift of cloud computing and, you know, is well understood by our customers, but I also work a lot with our partners. Because, you know, we're a platform provider, so I think it's also really interesting to see how you know, the ecosystem is also embracing those trends and, you know, developing great new products and great new solutions for the customers here in Africa.
Okay, cool. And I guess I'll just, you know, throw this out there. So you can answer anybody. What would you say excites you most about the tech industry?
I think one thing for me, I love Mondays, so I'm thinking that loving Monday, it's really very exciting. And what I try to do is to make my people love Mondays also. That's one thing, but what's really exciting is I even have the impression that I'm working in a fashion industry, because there are so many innovative things, new things happening almost every day. We mentioned change, and it's true that change is the main constant, I would say, in the technology world. So really, it's I really, because we are, since we arrived here, we began doing a technology with which we were familiar. So we begin with something like, it's not really obsolete now, but it's like now it's in the cloud. So before it was a version on premise, for example, and now. And what really excites me is that last year I went to Africa, South Africa, to have a prize. And this prize was on the same technology I did like 15 years ago. And now it was cloud in the cloud. So we see how change is. And I think seeing that every day, almost every day, things are changing. And as I said, also in our company, we've got so many diverse, different technologies and new ones. And I really like, it's like fashion. I'm always learning and learning and learning. So that's perfect.
All right, great. Did you want to say something? Yeah.
In adding to your answer, what I love about technology is the global reach, like it's really touching everyone, and that you can achieve scale. And I think this is what makes it very impactful on the planet. That leaves something for you, Laurence.
No, I think it's a good point, Susanne. I think one of the things that maybe we don't realize at this moment, but I think technology is going to become much more reachable than before, right? When you think about it, and I think as well Zulaika alluded to it, but when you think about, you know, a couple of years ago, you needed a big server. You know, if you wanted to do, you know, run some models, you needed, you know, HPC, high power computing. You know, those things were very expensive, right? And on top of that, especially for countries, you know, you better get a data center that's up to standard, etc. So I think the thing that cloud does is, when you think about it, you know, if you're eager to learn, you know, there's nothing preventing you to have a great idea, to experience with the technology, to play with it, to test it. So I think it makes it also much more accessible. I think what, though, I would say is, please keep a lifelong attitude to learning, because I think that will be so important. You know, you guys will probably change jobs, you know, 15 times over your career. What I mean by changing jobs is not necessarily company, but the skills that you will need to be successful are going to change so rapidly over time, right? So on the one hand, it's very accessible, but I think from a mindset perspective, you need to be so agile, right? And I think that's for me, a very interesting time.
Yeah, so I'm picking up this, you know, you talking about learning, you're talking about impact, you're talking about change, and one of the reasons that's why we're here at the Switch conference is to actually, you know, get that, to learn we're impacting young girls and I guess women in tech. And you know, over the few years or the many years that the tech industry has evolved, I'd just like to get a sense of how you think the tech industry is actually helping, you know, more girls become empowered, because we haven't really seen that in many years.
I think we're still not there, clearly. I mean, if you look at the statistics, you know, there's still a lot of work to be done. On the other hand, I think it's a great moment because, like I said, I think the barriers to entry, if you're eager to learn, you know, are really coming down. I think second, as I mentioned in the beginning, the breadth of the conversation that technology will lead you to will, I think, naturally probably attract a more diverse pool of talents than before. So I think the conversation, given the stakes, the conversation is bound to become more inclusive. And I think that will appeal to young women, maybe more than before.
If I may add to this, I want to relate to what was said yesterday. We have a desire, and it would be very important for many young women to go to forward and have a science or engineering or maths degree. But as Laurence just said, the field of expertise that's needed to advance technology is broadening. And from what I said before, you can deduct that we need people who are good in communications, we need people who are creative and can design interfaces with the clients, which doesn't necessarily mean you need a feeling for numbers and maths. If you like an industry that's very fast-paced, that's exciting, and that requires continuous learning, and you have a passion for technology, you will find a way to deploy your talents. Understand your talents first, and if you have a talent for like the hard sciences and maths, then please go. But if you have different talents, there might still be a very, very impactful role for you to play in the tech industry.
Okay. Would you like to add?
Yes, I would like, because I think it's also a change. Like today, it's changing, like more women are coming into, even if, as Laurence said, we have not reached there yet. And I take also the example of my company, and today we are almost like 50-50. So there is, and we really like treat these people the same way. Yesterday I said also, I talked about the millennials, and I was saying that it's really like exclusive of gender. It's men and women. And I said also that, and I really think when I see my people working together, they are complementary because they don't think the same way. For example, maybe a lady, she'll be more creative. And I also think about one example is that when men do cooking, sometimes they do it better than women. And I'm thinking that technology sometimes is the same. I mean, when women are passionate about the technology and are really indulging in it, they can do better. So really it's...
Okay, I hear you. There's something that Susanne touched on that I think I'd like to ask you a follow-up question on. She spoke about talents and using the skills that you have. And then you also spoke about passion, which is what the panel is about. And from my understanding, you've had 15 years experience in the IT consulting industry. And, you know, through your experience, I'm pretty sure you're able to come up with, you know, meet different people, have a lot of different opportunities. How were you able to use these opportunities to be able now to eventually move beyond the tech space as to, you know, the consulting industry you spoke about and set up now your own company?
Okay. Yesterday I talked about millionaires, coming back to that, and I feel I'm also a millennial, even if I've got like 15 years experience in the IT field. And during my whole career, I was like, I think opportunities, they don't come that often. Yeah. And we really have to identify them. So I've been changing because I began like a programmer, then a consultant also because I was doing like consulting services on the different applications, ERPs and everything. Then I came back here, founded a company. Now I am a director of the company. So I've been really grabbing, I think, I had the chance, the mindset of grabbing the opportunities whenever they came in. They popped up, and I really just said I have to grab them. So now today, and okay, I've been in my company like next year it will be 15 years, so years fly by. And it's true also that I'm still dreaming of what am I going to do beyond that. And I think that the summum would be like really empowering young people. That's my dream, because I think we should still dream, whatever the age and whatever is dreaming, and that's my next dream.
Okay. And Susanne, coming to you, you have had vast experience in the business and tech space. And what we're seeing more and more is that young people are coming out to start their own ventures, to start their own businesses. And so just from your experience, how do you think, as a young person, say I want to start my own venture, how can I accommodate or bring in the concept of technological innovation to, make my business successful, my venture successful?
I think starting your own business starts with understanding your clients or whom you want to serve before you do develop a product. And yes, that might involve technology, and your clients might actually talk to you about technology, but I think the first thing you need to understand is what the value is that you want to provide to your clients. And I'm sure Zulaika did the same, otherwise she wouldn't be successful. And it's the same, it doesn't matter if you do a consulting business or if you deliver like a product you can touch. You need to understand what the value is you generate and why there is a need for it.
Okay, and I guess Laurence, so building up on your 20 years experience in just the tech space, and I guess Microsoft as well, I'm pretty sure when we were talking, you were telling me earlier about how you've traveled generally across the Southern African countries. What is one similarity or one thing that has stuck out to you most in working in the tech space around the Southern African countries?
Good question. I think we really need to be able to find ways to skill people faster. So, one of the things we're really thinking hard, we have actually an organization called Microsoft for Africa that, is really thinking about how do we bring skilling and innovation faster and especially at scale on the continent. I think that's one of the things that I really like, us as a tech industry to really think about. So we're very keen to see what ALU does. We love the program. How can we get more of this? How can we and like I said, how can we do it at scale? I think that's what I think probably I would see as one of the main things that we got to solve as an industry. Now that being said, I think some countries are probably more advanced than others in Africa on the theme. You think about Kenya and Nigeria, where you're really starting to have quite a vibrant ecosystem, and also obviously those countries starting to have the skill for it. So that's what kind of is back of my mind.
Yeah. Okay. Now that you mentioned Kenya, I'm from Kenya. And there are a lot of organizations in Kenya that are coming up to help young women in tech and young girls in tech, just encouraging them to join this industry that not many of them would choose to join. But then we still, hear these reports of there's a big gender gap that still exists, And in your own experiences, what do you think we can actually better do to, encourage more girls to join tech? What do you think isn't being done yet?
I relate back to what I said before. I think there is a broader skill set needed in technology, and I was actually involved in designing a program in Europe where there was mentoring provided to young women, but before they enter the corporate space, like during studies or when making a choice for which subjects to choose. And I think that might be very helpful to replicate in other countries, so that before you actually engage with your first job or serious job, that you have somebody to bounce off some ideas of what it actually means to be in tech. And a lot of stereotyping goes on about what the tech world is like, and some of the stereotyping, fortunately, is not right.
Yeah, that's very true. Anything? Yeah.
Okay, I would like to add something is, for example, for me, two categories, like the young girls and ladies who don't know, I mean, they have to choose what to do, whether to get employed, whether to begin their own company. And for these kinds of conference, like these 2 days, like Girls ICT Day, like Women in Tech Africa. I think all these different things, they really create awareness and like show to the ladies and girls and young girls that it is possible, that there are other persons who have done this journey, and the journey is, if it's possible for the others, it's also possible for you. That's one thing for the young people. And for people who are already employed, I can see this in my company. For example, about maternity leaves, whenever someone has got a baby, we allow her to stay at home, to work from home. And that's something, I think, it has an impact. Because it's not like, I won't hire a lady because she's going to get pregnant. No. But okay, because this is life. But we try to implement procedures, process to make their life easier as a woman.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. So we're going to take like 2 questions from the audience. Anybody has a question? Yeah, is there somebody who can?
I mean, so as during this conference we think about including women in technology, I just thought of something that I have not had anyone address throughout the conference. And I'm wondering whether any of you knows why the situation is the way it is right now. How did we get here in the first place, having very few women in the field and a majority of men?
So I think, I mean, one thing is you just look at the facts, right? You know, I think in Africa, 2.5% of university graduates are actually graduating in computer science. And I don't have the figures, but probably only 15% of that are women, right? So you just do the math, right? It's very, very low. So I think, you know, we probably one of the root cause for me is, you know, how do we get more women to embrace the field? And then I think I'll go back to the point that Susanne has already made. You know, how do we change, or how do we make sure that from a communication perspective, also young women that haven't chosen the careers understand that their skill set is very relevant to this industry, right? We need very strong program managers. We need very strong cross-team collaboration, strong communication skills. So I think there's also that aspect is, you know, maybe if you've majored in another field, you can perfectly have a very successful career in tech.
If I may add to that, just very fundamentally, I think many young women and men actually follow the inspiration from a role model. But then very few young women today have a female role model that's in tech, because there are many, but they are not that visible, and in many families there is probably none. So it takes a lot of courage to follow a career path where you have no one who can kind of give you some guidance. I think that's just natural. But I also believe there is a place for non-tech degrees in technology, and to some extent the time has come, from my point of view, to demystify the tech community. And keeping this community separate from like the society as large is not good for society, and the society is actually our families. So if you at some point lose the capability to talk to your grandmother or your kids, because everything that's related to tech is kind of expressed in some acronym. You really are losing something very valuable, which is kind of the bonds of your family. So we need to kind of demystify technology to some extent, and then it becomes more attractive to women, because we are striving to be inclusive, bonding, and be part of like overall society. And I think this is where technology will be moving to.
So I just confirm what Laurence and Susanne have said, that I think today it's a trend. We are not there yet, but and it's the same. It's not in the technology field. It's not only coding, developing. It's really very large and very vast, and so many different opportunities, I think, which really suit women. And that's the thing. Maybe we are not really aware of all the different opportunities, possibilities that are around the coding or developing field of technology.
There's one more question at the back.
Hello. My name is Stephen, and I've been following the women in tech community for long. And one of the things I've noticed is that young women engaging in this field have this thing to follow only women, like their role models. Don't you think it's something that is you should address? That is, advice is only that they can also follow the men that are doing well, because it is not something about the gender. It is a field, and everyone can embrace it. So, what do you think about that?
Since I introduced the word role model, I answer, yes, of course, I agree with you, but it still doesn't necessarily come natural, depending on how you grew up and what your family circumstances were. You probably look for a female role model also. It doesn't mean you shouldn't follow a man. I also would like to say, of course, men can mentor women, or should mentor women, young women, to help them navigate an entry point or a career in tech.
And I would really, just to add, because it's like today we've got the questions from men, and yesterday it was balanced. I think it was like women and men had talks here, and I think today it's also a little bit the same. So there is a mixture of both of them, but we as human beings, we like to follow someone who resembles us. So that's natural, like Susanne said. So, but I think men and women who are present, they are here. So that's one very important thing.
Yeah. Anything to add? All right, good. I love how we're hearing these concepts of mentorship, of supporting each other, the fact that we need to encourage and actually bring in, uplift others as we go on along. And so, as we wrap up this session, I have a final question, which is, think back if you're like 20 years old or 22 years old, as probably some of us are right here right now. What is one thing you'd want to tell yourself, or what is one piece of advice you'd want to hear?
I would say, do what you can't, because maybe that's why there are so few ladies in this field. So it's more like the person introducing this morning said, be brave and fearless. And I think that's what I would say. It's not because you're a woman that you can't. So, okay, you think you can't, so do it. Go for it.
Yeah.
Well, I build on what Zulaika said. Yes, I think you should sometimes grab an opportunity, jump into cold water, and learn to swim later. Mm-hmm. You should follow your passion and find a role model that you can follow, no matter which gender. Like, find someone you can kind of aspire to learn from.
Okay.
If I reflect just on my own experience, I think one thing I would try to do better at the beginning of my career was to build a strong network. I think, when you get out of school, typically you're very focused on the academics, on the excellence. I think one thing, and that might be a little more challenging for young women also because of the lack of presence of, women in the field, is really be very, I would say, very proactive, very self-aware about the fact that, building your network is also very important at the beginning of your career, because that's also what will create the opportunities for you. And that's obviously, completely gender neutral. As Stefan was saying, I think, the role models, of course, can be men. The second thing I would say as well is, like I said, be extremely agile and ready for continuous learning.
Okay, so it seems we have more time. So we're not going to close up on the panel just yet. And, we're hearing network, I'm hearing jump in the water, don't be scared to actually take your step. And I'm hearing something about following your passion, right? And I think, for, I guess, many young people who are probably still thinking about, how do I actually take that first step, to jump in the water? Like, how do I put myself out there, network, and meet people? What encouragement or what would you say for somebody who's actually, still feeling like they can't get themselves out there, I guess? So
I think it's especially a very relevant point for young women. And Zulaika was referring to it. You have to be ready to seize the opportunity when it comes. I think women have a tendency to pause and think about what is it that they're missing for the opportunity that is lying ahead. Where I have seen a lot of, male counterparts, thinking about all they have already to do the job, right? So I think I've seen this really happening is tendency for young women to look at the glass half full, half empty, sorry, than half full. And I think that's really something that, if very early on you can learn how to work on this, to realize that it's okay to take risk. You might not be perfect at it at first, but if you have that attitude to seek feedback, to wanna improve and get better, you will make it work, right? So I think it's very important to have that mindset of whatever the opportunity of it, and maternity might be a little bit of the same thing when you think about the maternity question for young women is how am I gonna get make it all work? Do I need to change my career? The reality is you will make it work, and you'll make it work also because you'll get people around you to help you and etc. And it's not all on your shoulder. You can be perfectly successful professional and perfectly successful at your family life. It's not one or the other. So just trust yourself and go for it, I would say.
Okay. Yes.
I suggest that you utilize what Laurence just said, build a network and identify people in your network who have joined the tech industry or work in a tech environment and talk to them. Try to understand what they do, why they like their work, assuming they do, and I assume most people in the industry do like it. Yeah. So try to understand what drives them, what makes them enjoy Mondays. And then you will learn if that is an industry that is good for you. And if you want to put your talent and your passion into that industry. And I think most people just need to kind of get a human touch on everything. So just talk to people in your network, and I think there is someone in tech in everyone's network. And I agree also with Laurence. I sometimes think if women read a job advertisement, they only read the things that they can't do, and the men do the opposite. and usually the list of things that men can't do is longer than the list of things women can't do, and they still apply.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
And I think network is really very important, like getting to know what the others are doing, whether I would like to do the same. And today in networking, you can go physically, like talking to the people, to reach them out, but also knowing that information is everywhere. So wherever you are, you can go to the net and find whatever. So that's one thing. Okay, but the most important for me is to know who you are, what you want, and your destination. I mean, what do you want? Where do you want to go? And I said that yesterday, and I really think that we don't do that enough. I mean, it's like trying to come back to ourselves. What do I really want? I think ladies, young girls, okay, they have one dream personal. I think it's like wearing a white dress at some point or something like that. But professionally, what do they really want? And this is, once they are able to determine what's really inside here, deep inside, and what drives them really, then they can go ahead and jump into the cold water, no matter how cold it is.
Yeah, and just thinking about, because we are on the African continent, and you know, the context itself does always matter as well. We might not, you know, the tech space might not be as developed as it is, say, in, you know, other parts of the world. And, you know, it can prove a challenge for so many people. And then this concept of networking and everything, how do you think, you know, we as young people can actually now use the tech space in itself to open up more networking opportunities for ourselves?
I think like conference like this, it's really something making the people who are on site, who don't have the opportunity to travel or whatever. But today, network, I think whatever a Wi-Fi connection is everywhere, almost. I don't know, because I'm traveling, and for me, it's almost everywhere. So maybe these kinds of conference of creating awareness should be done differently and on site in the country, and make people feel that they can. They can reach. I think that's maybe, it's not, I don't know, I got the impression it's not done that much on site, really.
Okay. Susanne, right, yeah. Earlier on, you were speaking about how you excel at the business and tech sector, I guess the merge of both. And you, according to your bio, part of what I found out was that you do very well in understanding cultural differences of the business and the tech sector. Can you share a bit more on that based on your experience traveling across, you know, different countries, I guess, in the African continent?
You would like to understand like the cultural...
Mm-hmm. So how have you been able, you know, in your own experiences, been able to understand like the different cultural aspects and merge it, you know, the business and the tech sector?
Okay. I think the key to understanding a culture is to listen. And I think in many cases you are actually not allowed to do anything but listen, because some cultures don't allow you to inquire. So I learned to listen. Yeah. I learned to find like a few people who trust me, so they will share information with me that they would not generally share. But this is a slow process. And if you have done like a couple of different cultures, you learn how to do it, and you can't just like I hope I'm not offending anyone. You can't do the American style and just walk into every room and just ask everyone every question. In some cultures, that doesn't work. What I find is very relevant, especially related to technology, is how risk averse or risk embracing a culture is. And the more risk averse a culture is, the longer people take to adopt any kind of innovation, and today most innovations come with technology. So I find this is a very critical thing to understand. If you go to different countries, try to understand, or different corporate environments, try to understand how risk averse or risk embracing people are. And you will know which kind of pace, what kind of commitment you can expect, and so on.
Okay, cool. So I've just seen somebody who walked in. She was going to be on this panel, and I think I would love to hear her own experience, because hers is quite different, and she's an undergraduate student. So Nini, I'm going to welcome you on stage to just share a bit more of your experience. As she walks on stage, Nini is currently a student at the African Leadership University. She'll be graduating this coming week. And thank you. So Nini has experience in the blockchain industry. I think she's going to share more on that. So yeah, tell us more.
Hello, my name is Nini, as she said, and I'm graduating next week, which is great. Yeah, and I've been in the, I said I've been in the blockchain sector from 2016, 2015. Mainly because I was really fascinated by cryptocurrencies initially. the fact that you could just literally send value over the internet just like that, and it just happened, and that's where I gained my interest for cryptocurrency and this technology that helps build cryptocurrencies. So yeah. Sorry.
Oh, this is yours.
So Nini, just before we move away from you, earlier on we were talking about what exactly led you to develop a passion for whichever area of expertise you're interested in the tech industry. And so can you tell us why exactly you ended up, or how you ended up in the blockchain industry of all, expertise? Yeah.
It was, okay, I've really been passionate about finance. I've really been passionate about finance from a very young age. And with moving to Mauritius, it was very hard for my family members to send me money, and it's very hard to send money to anyone, especially because I love online shopping, and yeah, it's very hard to send money. So when I heard about cryptocurrencies and the fact that you could send value easier, I think that's where I gained interest. I was like, so you can send money over the internet that easily, and you can send value, so let me find out what this is. And then I took one course. From one course, I took another course. From another course, I just went deep into blockchain and businesses, and how it just makes sure that there's transparency, there's security, and it makes, most people are developing applications that are going to make it easier for people to transact value, in Africa. And I think that's also going to make sure that there is trade within Africa. That's one thing that can push trade within Africa. So I think that's that.
Would you like to add something?
May I have a question for Nini? I did read some of your background, and I believe you did some research and an internship on blockchain. How did you find out about this opportunity, and how did it help you to embrace technology even more?
Okay, in regards to the internship, I found out about the opportunity when I went to a blockchain conference, because I write blockchain articles too. So I was writing articles for a blockchain conference that was held in Mauritius in August on the 31st. And then I met someone who said, you know what, I'm in the finance sector, and most people are coming to me because Mauritius is taking out laws and regulations regarding cryptocurrencies. And she's like, I don't want to be left behind. I want to make sure that my consulting firm is ahead in regards to technology, blockchain, AI, and everything. So could you come help me? And then I was like, well, that's what I want to do, so I'm here. Yeah.
And from what I gather, you currently serve as a member of the Mauritius Blockchain Advisory, if I'm not wrong, yeah. But what we've seen is that a lot of people, you hear a lot of speculation about blockchain, a lot of people will be asking, are you sure about this? And yet it's a very exciting field. So, what do you think, how do you think we can change this mindset, based on your own experience and your own passion in the blockchain sector?
I think it's mainly reading, and research. Because most times we go into things without understanding them. I know a lot of people who have taken blockchain and taken Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies and made them seem as if this is tech that can be used to transact on the dark web or anything, and it's just a very negative connotation. But if you do your research, if you are interested and then you do your research and then you read about it, you realize that this tech actually has potential. And then if you, for instance, I know a lot of paper money that's being used to, on the dark web even. I know a lot of paper money, banks have a lot of scandals and whatever. But then if you have crypto and then you can trace it, and then you can have, currency that you can, okay, it's on the internet, but I can trace where it's from, I can trace everything. The white paper is there and everything is there. Then it's all about research, it's all about reading. And I feel like we should all read, we should all research, instead of just jumping into speculations or jumping into conclusions about anything really.
Which is something I think Laurence mentioned earlier on, about how we also need to learn more and find out more about what you're passionate about. I'm just curious, from the other panelists, have you interacted with blockchain in your experience as techies?
I'll answer this. For me, not really. And I think I am one of these persons you said that, not only me, but my company, because I said that we are always looking for new trends, new technologies, but we've not gone to this one. And okay, I think we have to read. And that's what I wanted to ask a question about. Okay, you told that you are passionate about finance and everything, so that's why you took blockchain. But have you sometimes gone back and said, then why did I choose this one, like blockchain, instead of artificial intelligence, for example? Have you like thought about it, or?
I've not really thought about it, but thing is, I have a very large interest in emerging technologies. So from artificial intelligence to blockchain to IoT. Anything that can make life easier, I'm on it. Like, I'm really on it. Anything that can make operations for a company easier and make them more effective and more efficient, I'm on it. Whether it's integrating, because I know Mauritius just legalized investment banking, digital investments and stuff. So it's going very digital. So everything that goes digital, I'm going digital too.
Any experiences with blockchain before? Yeah.
Of course, you know, as Microsoft, we have a very large portfolio of emerging technologies. I would say what Nini is saying is very true, right? So I think there's lots of fields at the moment, lots of emerging technologies that are really, really cool and have an impact. Yeah. I think it also depends a little bit on the industry and the scenario that you want to look for. Personally, we've done a lot just because of the kind of industries I'm involved in with AI and predictive maintenance, just because I'm looking at a lot of manufacturing customers at the moment. But, you know, like I said, I think it's great, you know, to have Nini with us and share her energy, because it's all about, you know, what's the problem or what's the challenge that you're trying to solve, right? So I love the fact that, you know, she started with her story with, you know, I just love shopping and it's so hard to send, you know, money to Mauritius. You know, I love it, right? Because it really starts with that, right? What is it that, you know, you come across, or what's your real life situation that really kind of gets you ticking? Now it could be also business related, but I love that idea of it. What is it that you're interested in solving? Where do you want to have an impact, right? And then take it from there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm continuously learning about blockchain since about 3 years. And I already said before, I have a finance background, and this is where it started, but in the meantime, blockchain is in pretty much all industries. What I find very exciting, and I expect this kind of to develop over the next decade, is that the new technologies are merging. Like, you will find applications for AI combined with blockchain, with IoT. So they are kind of convening, and you will find solutions that are very complex, but that will make our lives much easier. Having said that, I think what Nini said is very true. If you want to talk about a topic, you need to do your research. And currently, if you want to stay attuned to all the different new technologies, you would be quite busy just reading up on everything. So make your choice of what you find most exciting and dive deep to get a profound knowledge and be able to lead an intelligent discussion. And then you will find it very difficult, unless you have like a full-time research job, to stay on top of all of what is going on right now.
Yeah, and I think that's what eventually leads to this passion that we're talking about. When, you know, you have an interest in something, you are probably going through a problem, you start to, you know, want to learn more about it. And so finally, Nini, there's a question I had asked all the panelists, and I'll ask you this same question. So the question was just mainly surrounding about what piece of advice they'd give themselves if they were our age, I guess, in your age. But since you are, I guess, around the same age brackets as we are right now, as you head out into the world, into the blockchain industry and finance and everything else, what's one thing you'd like to tell other undergraduates or other students who will probably have an interest in blockchain or the tech industry and they're not so sure exactly how to start?
Well, I think it's mainly starting with what you are truly, what makes you tick, literally, like what makes you move, what wakes you up in the morning. I know it sounds like a cliche, but really what makes you tick, what makes you wake up in the morning, and then going after it. And if it's something to do with blockchain, like there's so many, things are changing so quickly, you understand? Like things are happening so quickly. You wake up, there's something happening in another country with blockchain. You wake up, there's something happening in South Africa with blockchain. There's something happening. So I think it's just finding your niche and making sure that if you find your niche, you go deep into it. Because I always say, I wish I was born during the internet, when the internet was starting up, the .com era. I think I'd be those people who were very interested in it. But since I missed that one, if there's one thing I'd like to be wrong about, I'd be passionate to be wrong about, is blockchain. Since I missed the .com and the boom and everything, let me get into this and see where it leads. I'd rather be wrong on my deathbed than say I missed that opportunity. So it's just finding what makes you tick and going after it, despite what anyone and everyone says.
Great, and I love that. I think that is a great way to summarize and to end this great panel discussion. Thank you so much, Laurence, Susanne, Zulaika, and Nini. It's been a pleasure hosting you. And feel free to interact with them and find out more about, their areas of expertise and how they're getting, or they got to where they are right now. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth.